All right, guys, I'm back with chapter 6. Remember at the end of chapter 5 of Lily to the Rescue, Two Little Piggies, they think they might have found a home for the two little piggies, Scamper and Dash, on a ranch. Chapter 6. The next day, we took Scamper and Dash for a car ride. Dad drove. Maggie Rose and I sat in the back seat, where I could keep an eye on the pigs who were in their cage in the far back. They made a lot of squealing noises when we first started driving, but then they settled down for a nap. They liked to sleep on top of each other, and I noticed that when Scamper twitched her ears, Dash twitched her ears at exactly the same time. This is not something dogs do. If I move my ears, Brewster doesn't move his. Was this why the pigs were given milk and I wasn't? Did my human family think that twitching ears deserved a treat, just like Maggie Rose gives me a treat for doing rollover? It's hard to tell what people are thinking sometimes. Ear twitching didn't seem like much of a trick, but then again, neither did rollover when I thought about it. We drove for some time and I figured we were headed back to where I'd first met my little pig friends, a place with food smells and clothing hanging down for Brian and Craig to push over. Instead, we wound up at a spot that smelled powerfully of cows and horses. We parked in the shade of a large tree, and Maggie, Rose, and Dad and I jumped out. Scamper and Dash had woken up, but they stayed where they were, lifting their noses inside their cage. A man in dusty clothing came over and held out his hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Cleveland," Dad told him. "I'm James Murphy. This is my daughter, Maggie Rose." "Call me Owen," the man replied. My nose was up and twitching like mad. I could smell animals, but I could not see any. "I'm sure glad you're here," the man in dusty pants said. "My boy found an abandoned fawn, and we were thinking we needed to call somebody, and then I remembered that I was getting a visit from a game warden today." I felt Dad stiffen, and Maggie Rose and I both glanced at him curiously. "Did you touch it?" Dad asked. Dirty Pants Man shook his head. "Nope, but she's clearly starving." "I need to see it right now," Dad said. "Can you take me to it?" Maggie Rose put my leash on my collar. Dad opened the back of our truck, lifted out the cage, and set Scamper and Dash on the ground in the shade. They charged up to the door and looked like they were waiting to get out and run around. Dad, however, did not let them out. This was a time for dogs, not pigs, to walk with people. We followed the man across some ground toward a stand of lush trees. His clothing gave off clouds of dust as he walked. That's when I saw the horses standing at a fence and staring at us. They seemed surprised that there could be anything so wonderful as a dog visiting their home. I wanted to trot over and sniff them and say hello, but my job was to be with my girl, and she was with Dad. "What do we do, Dad?" Maggie Rose asked, "if the deer is starving?" Dad rubbed his jaw. "Well, a doe will leave a newborn fawn alone by itself for as much as 12 hours at a time. I suspect that we're not dealing with a starving animal, probably just a newborn who hasn't yet fed enough to get any meat on her bones. I think I was probably the first one to smell it. A new creature, female, young, furry, but not a dog. I'd met an animal who smelled like this once before, something with long legs that Dad had called a deer." The man with the dirty pants slowed, crouched, and pointed. I guessed that he could smell the deer too. "See? Right there under the tree." I could see the thing now. It was small, a little smaller than I am. It had big dark eyes and ears that stuck out from its head. It wasn't moving at all, like a dog who has been told to stay. Painted over this foreign creature's scent was another smell. The same sort of animal, but different, bigger, older. Also, I could detect an odd, faint, milky odor as well. It reminded me of when Scamper and Dash would climb on top of Brewster and irritate him out of his nap. After they had roused him, the pigs would smell a tiny bit like Brewster, and he would smell a tiny bit like them. That's what I suppose might have happened here. This small deer had been napping with another, older one. That did not explain the milk, though. Perhaps earlier, Dirty Pants Man had been here with a bottle of milk. It was discouraging to think that all these creatures were being given milk, but a dog wasn't. "See? Dirty Man Pants whispered. The poor thing is like to starving. No, Dad replied. It's what I thought. This fawn was just born yesterday. Its mother left it here to go forage. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if she's very close by watching us. As we were sitting there, I picked up a new hint of the odor that was on the little deer. The animal that had been lying with it was somewhere over in a deeper stand of trees. I looked and could not see it, but I sure could smell it. The milk odor was also stronger, too, now that I knew to sniff for it. So the baby deer is okay, Dad? Maggie Rose asked. Yes, Dad replied. All we need to do is leave it alone. Its mother will take care of the rest. Dad straightened up, and that's when I caught the faintest movement. There it was, a bigger deer, just like the small one except for its size. It was staring at us without moving a muscle. Maybe it was like Brewster and didn't like to move any more than it had to. Dirty Pants Man smiled. Well, you learn something new every day, he said. I for sure thought I needed to help it. Don't worry, this happens all the time, Dad replied. People mean well, and when they see a newborn fawn, they think it must be abandoned because they're so skinny and aren't moving, as if they're too weak to stand up. But that's their instinct. The fawn couldn't possibly run away from predators, so all it can do is lie still and hope nothing spots it. Often people bring a baby deer to us at the wildlife refuge, but it's very hard to raise them by hand. It's almost always best to leave them where they are. We were done looking at the little creature and smelling the other one in the woods because we turned away and headed back. The man with the dusty pants walked with us to our truck. So don't you think this would be a good place for your rescue piglets? The man asked. Well, that depends, Dad replied. That's the end of chapter 6. I wonder what Dad is thinking when he says, well, that depends if it would be a good place for the piggies. Depends on what, I wonder. We'll find out next time in chapter 7.